Go for it, Michelle.
Awesome. Lisa,
Yeah.
let's talk.
Great.
We can also open up the chat to any questions you might have for Lisa or myself, but mostly Lisa. Lisa, I have something I want to ask you about. What have you learned from improv that keeps an audience engaged from moment to moment?
Oh. What a great question. I think that my first hit on that answer is if there's something real happening. If there's something real happening, and that can look any number of ways. It can be funny, or it can be dramatic, or it can be silent. So it can take a bunch of different shapes, but if something is actually happening between people and people are actually discovering it together, then it stays pretty engaging. And as soon as one person leaves the interaction and starts trying too hard for an audience laugh, or starts paying more attention to the thought in their head than what is actually happening between people in front of an audience, then it's immediately less engaging.
Yeah. That's fascinating. I'm so interested in this conversation because of the crossover that I think what storytelling does, at least the kind that Michelle and I and Dan sort of do, and you too, because you actually teach storytelling as well.
Mm-hmm.
The crossover between that sort of what happens moment to moment to keep the audience engaged, that sounds really resonant. That resonates for me as well.
Yeah. It was interesting preparing for this. So I have never I've never done this kind of storytelling. I've never performed a true story. And it's funny that the first time is like in my living room for my cats in front of a computer. But so I was really nervous about it. But when you and I were working together, you also were talking about if we can get the stuff out of the way so we can really see you and see what's happening. And you were talking about things like filler words and just really being willing to be here and be seen. Then the story will be an engaging story. And I really resonated with that in terms of what needs to happen on an improv stage, because there's so many things that fear will make us want to throw up in front of ourselves and in front of an audience to make it feel safer.
Right.
And none of that is as interesting to watch as somebody who's not sure what they're going to do next. That is a pretty powerful thing to watch.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, it's that moment to moment thing where who knows what the next thing you're even going to say is going to be.
Yeah.
You're not 100% sure either. You just know you've got a direction you got to go in. That's interesting. That's fascinating. Okay, I have another question. A lot of what we teach in Storycraft, we directly draw it from Keith Johnstone's, the whole narrative chapter and even some of this fun. We play a lot of games from improv. We do a lot of stuff around platform, tilt, cascade, all those improv Johnstonian principles. What did you find in preparing your story that crossed over from the improv world in terms of structure and all those things you learned in storytelling? What's the crossover in the prep?
You don't need to be perfect. The willingness to say, you know what, you've got what you need and you've done the prep you need to do. You've prepped and now you show up.
Yeah.
And the thing that happens is going to be the right thing that happens. So that's a huge improv. Trusting the moment, trusting that the moment when you get there is going to, you will have what you need is huge. It's a huge influence for me. And the other piece of, and maybe this is just performance, but be okay with some silence.
Yeah.
A coach of mine, William Hall, who was one of the founders of Bats Improv, he used to say, a breath is a dialogue that the audience writes. A breath is a line of dialogue that the audience writes, which I love, because something is happening between people and they stop and they breathe and the audience knows everything that's happening and they didn't have to say it. So this idea of getting comfortable with silence and just letting it be average Be average. Like just let it be imperfect and whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. We have some questions. Michelle, do you want to pull some? You've been looking at the questions. Do you see any that you want to throw
Yeah,
out?
there's one in there from Austin. Austin, I can also let you ask it since you're right here. Do you want to go for it?
You kind of touched on it a little bit, but I was curious like how you felt going into this because it is somewhat scripted. And just like how your nerves felt different maybe than like going out for an improv show. And then yeah, more like the visceral experience in your body of doing the story.
I was shaking. I was so much more nervous for this than I have been for 90% of the improv shows that I've done, because there is a way that this is supposed to go. And it's just me. And so in improvisation, anywhere it goes is the right way. My job is how, not what. My job is, well, if I show up and I pay attention and I make my partner look good, then it doesn't matter where we go because I'm doing my work and I can trust that we'll wind up in the right place. But this is like the opposite. This is like, no, you know what this story is, and there's a way for it to be more powerful than not, and I care about it. It's true, and my parents are watching and they were both in the story, and so I was like, oh, and so suddenly feeling like I have something that I could get wrong makes me feel much more nervous than doing an improv show where it's like, no, there's no right or wrong because this thing that we're about to make doesn't exist yet. So it's impossible for me to get it wrong. It's really different. Yeah, thanks for that question.
What got you through that part? What got you through so that you were able to be present with the story?
Your advice to visualizing the moments really helped. So you Michelle, you gave me the advice to put it in the present tense. So instead of like, well, when I was in 3rd grade, I was walking home with my friend Allie, but like, here I am, this is what's happening, and it let me live in that moment, and the actor in me was like, oh, cool. And like the storyteller in me is like, oh yeah, details are helpful. So like my mom unloading the dishwasher, the timing of like watching her react to me announce that I'm polytheistic, like just like living in those moments. The present tense helped me act them so that I didn't have to just like remember them. I was like, yeah, I was there. So if I put myself in that moment, then I can say what is happening.
Yeah, awesome. I think we probably should, Michelle, do you think we should, Lisa, thank you so much. We're already past 8 o'clock and I'm feeling responsibility towards the clock, but I am so appreciative of you answering the questions and being here, being a part of this our inaugural story night.
Yeah. If I may say one thing, if people are interested in seeing an improv show, Bats Improv does shows every Friday and Saturday at 8. They're free. You can go see some improv. And one is starting up about right now. And one of the current Stanford improvisers is in that show. So if you want to check it out, you can do that.
Yes, please support Bats Improv. They do, Lisa's leadership, and always they do amazing stuff and are trying all kinds of cool stuff online. And we just are so impressed and supportive of what Bats is doing out there. So we want to encourage people to go check it out.
Someone asked if we're doing this again.
Yes.
We're doing it again next week at the same time. So the answer is yes. Hopefully more than that, but definitely next week at the same time. So
new story,
come back for new stories.
And storytellers, again, deepest thanks. You guys did amazingly well. It's beautiful. I'm so appreciative. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Yay. Good night. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jessia. Thanks, Amy.
Everybody. Oh my gosh.